Um, what's your name?
James Dinville.
Okay. What branch of service were you in?
I was in the U.S. Army first, and now I'm currently in the Nebraska Army National Guard.
Good. What are your dates of service?
Started serving in the Army February 2nd, 1998, and I'm still serving.
Um, why did you join the army?
Really, a friend talked me into it. We were working together at the time. All through high school, we worked together, and he'd come in one day and said he'd join the Army because he's going to jump out of airplanes behind enemy lines. Told me it was some crazy great adventure, and it helped pay for college. So I thought that'd be a good idea. Didn't really know what I wanted to go to college for. So I signed up to get money for college, and I thought it would be great to jump out of a plane, which I never did, thank goodness. But that's why I ended up joining, is money for college, so I didn't have student loan debt.
Yeah. And how old were you?
I was 17 years old.
So right after high school.
Pretty much right after high school, yep.
What do you recall your first days of service?
What I recall from it, I remember in great detail, like pretty much the whole day, that first day. Flew out of Omaha, obviously nervous and kind of scared, not knowing what you're getting into. We flew into Atlanta. We got into Atlanta at after supper time, and we got on a charter bus and drove about 90 minutes down to Fort Benning, and I remember being like completely lost. We were up until we got there about 9 o'clock. They kept us up till about 1 o'clock and woke us back up around 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. So it was pretty brutal, but yeah, definitely exciting.
So much sleep.
And that was a big theme of basic training back then. It's called sleep deprivation, where they get you all out of whack and you get very little sleep and everything like that. So it was intentional. It was by design.
Oh, it was?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
absolutely.
That's bad. I would never do that. Tell me about your boot camp or training experience.
Boot camp and basic training was pretty eye-opening. I was a small town farm kid. Grew up on the farm predominantly in a very white community, and it was a really eye-opening experience to other cultures and walks of life, really. When you go to basic training, you get assigned what was called a battle buddy. So like you're always looking out for each other, making sure your uniform's right, you remember to shave, make your bed. And my battle buddy was a guy by the name of Vega. He was about, I don't know, like 5'6", Puerto Rican, grew up in like the Bronx or New Jersey, I don't remember which one it was, but very eye-opening experience, very neat experience from that standpoint. But basic training was a lot of fun. We got to play with a lot of weapons and run around in the woods and play, like good guy, bad guy, cops and robbers. We called it cowboys and Indians back in the day, but
that's so cool. That's really cool. And how did you get through it?
Graduate from training?
Yeah. How did you get through it? If it was hard or?
Basic training was hard. I'd never been away from home really at that point. Very developing time for me personally, where you kind of grow up, you have to be independent and kind of figure things out, rather than having an older sibling or a parent or a relative there to kind of help guide you. But yeah.
So what was your type of work during service?
While I was in the Army and the first part of my time in the National Guard, were both infantry jobs. I was an infantry soldier, first stationed in Camp Casey, South Korea for a year. Once I got done there, I went back to Fort Benning, Georgia. I was there for about 2 years. Transitioned to the Iowa National Guard as an infantry soldier. Became a recruiter for the Iowa National Guard, and then I've been a recruiter for the Nebraska National Guard for almost 10 years now.
What did you teach? No. What did they teach you in the service?
I think one of the most important things I learned is, as I kind of talked about, is not burning a bridge. Kind of that concept. Had a really good sergeant in charge of me in Korea. Taught me a lot about the values and respect of people, but also talked about never burning in a bridge, because you just never know when that'll come full circle. and yeah, just a lot of growing up.
So where did you serve? You said Korea and Fort Benning.
Yep. And then over in the Iowa Army National Guard and then Nebraska Army National Guard. So I forgot that was one of the questions. Sorry.
Yeah, that's fine. Tell me about a couple of the most memorable experiences.
It's a good question. What did I put down the last time?
You said bonds with other people and never burn a bridge.
Okay. The bonds with people, it's kind of like I mentioned when you go to basic training, you go there, you don't know anybody, but what you do is you come to find out, same thing like when I went to Korea, you're completely away from everybody in the world, you're hours and hours away, and you form the military is kind of like a second family, kind of like a bond and a relationship that you have with them. I was in Korea in 98 to 99, still in contact with a few of the people I served with there, and then when I was in Fort Benning after that, still stayed in touch with those guys, went to each other's weddings, it's just a lasting bond, you spend time together, you get close, and you share that common is, it sucks, but you're sucking all together,
Yeah.
some of the miserable stuff you do, but
How did you get any award or medals or?
yeah, I have quite a few awards or ribbons or whatever you want to call them. Nothing too crazy, pretty much it's just your basic general ones of accomplishments and things like that. Probably one of the biggest awards I've ever been given is called an EIB or an Expert Infantryman's Badge. You pretty much have taskings of, you have to do, I think it's about 25 different stations of different taskings, whether it's weapons or land navigation or putting weapons together, putting them back together, throw grenades, a whole bunch of different crazy things, a 12-mile road march at the end. But that was probably the thing I'm the most proud of, is accomplishing that. It's pretty difficult to pull off, but
Yeah, well.
got lucky, I guess.
How did you get promoted?
Getting promoted in the military is not necessarily a formality, but somewhat close. Typically, your time in service, or however long you're in the military, and how for like your first 4 ranks, pretty much amount of time. Over time, you just get promoted. But once you transition past that, if you stay in long enough, then you have to go to continuing education in the NCO Corps to become a sergeant. So it's kind of the way it goes. Lots of schooling.
So, how did you get to your rank, and what was it?
My current rank is Master Sergeant, or E8. Again, you just kind of have to go to schools. You have to separate yourself a little bit in order to kind of get towards the upper levels, making sure you're managing your career wisely. But do what you're supposed to do and take care of business, and it gets recognized.
How did you stay in touch with your family?
While I was in Korea, I'd write a few letters, not too many letters, maybe mail a few care packages here and there back and forth, but every once in a while I'd call home. We had one phone in the whole entire building. Back then the internet was just kind of barely taking off, where you had like the messenger things and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I never communicated with them that way. Pretty much once a week I'd call home. That's about it.
And what was the food like?
The food, as I told you, it was a lot like high school food,
Yeah.
But you had chicken probably 3 or 4 days a week, barbecue chicken, oven glow chicken, like chicken noodle soup, whatever it is. It's like constantly chicken. But the food wasn't too bad. Sometimes you just gotta add a little syrup or add a little salt. You never know.
Did you feel pressure or stress?
I feel, there's always pressure in the military to, expectations, and, you have certain tasks and accomplishments or things you have to accomplish. But you know, the pressure was there to complete them according to, you know, in the military, everything's very structured. So, like, you know, you just kind of have to check the block, as we would call it, and the pressure is there to be successful and know how to do your job. And the stress wise, not super stressed. I mean, it is what it is. It's all about how you deal with things. You can either let things truly affect you or just accept what it is. And some days are stressful. It's just like any job, really.
Yeah. So, where did you go when you were on leave? Or what did you do when you were on leave?
When I was on leave, I didn't take leave when I was in Korea. I stayed there the whole entire 12 months and didn't come home. But when I came back from Korea after 12 months of being over there, I just went home to the farm, hung out with family and friends, but never did anything exotic really on leave. Coolest thing I probably did on leave was go to spring break in Panama City. That was about as exciting as it got, but I never took any exotic trips. Wish I would have, though, you know, taking advantage of that opportunity. Thought about Australia, but I never got brave enough, I guess.
Excuse me. Do you have any photos from your time in service?
Absolutely. I have lots of photos. I'll let you just take pictures of them or whatever you want to do, or hold on to them.
Yeah.
That way you can share them.
Who are the people in the photographs?
Mostly people I served with, like when I was overseas, or not overseas, but over in Korea. I pretty much brought Korea ones because it was kind of a different walk of life compared to being down in Georgia. I don't think I took as many pictures when I was in Georgia, but they're pretty much just soldiers I served with.
Did you make any close friends while in service?
Absolutely. Like, two of probably my closest friends were when I was stationed at Fort Benning, Georgia. Actually went, after I got out of that army and I was in the National Guard at the time, I went to both their weddings. They came to my wedding. So we stay in touch. One of them is completely out of the military. One of them serves in the Pennsylvania National Guard. So stay in contact with them, yeah.
Do you keep a personal diary?
I do not keep a diary at all. You know, probably too many adventures and too many things that you don't want in there.
Yeah. Was your education supported by the GI Bill?
My education was supported not through the GI Bill, but through federal tuition assistance, which is another VA-funded program like the GI Bill. My GI Bill actually has been passed on to my 3 kids. They'll be able to use it and help pay for their college.
So did you take any college classes while you were in service?
I didn't take any when I was in the Army, but I'm finishing up college right now in about 3 weeks. I'll have a bachelor's degree in environmental sciences, and I'll be done April 28th to be exact. But I'm pretty excited to have that done.
I bet. Did your military experience or influence your thinking about war or about the military in general?
I think it probably does, which, you know, you see the heartache, and, you know, in fact, today is April 8th.
Yeah.
In 3 days, a close friend of mine was killed in action on deployment, Brett Maher, and, you know, prior to that, we had a soldier, James Carney, from the same unit who was affected by that, a different deployment, ended up killed in action. So it changes kind of your perspective of how you look at things, I would say, for sure.
Okay. So thank you. This is all.
Thank you. This picture here is graduation from basic and infantry school. The gentleman I took a picture with, he was kind of like a mentor. I was obviously 17 years old, but he was 32 years old and going to basic training for the first time ever in his life. So it was probably quite challenging for him in that regard. But that's that picture. And then after I left basic training, well, this is another picture of basic training here. I have no idea what we're doing. we were hanging out in the barracks. In the background, every basic training kind of has their own little theme. Our platoon was called the Dogs of War. It looks like we're writing letters, or I have no idea what we were doing, but I'm sure we were doing great things.
Do you have much time to hang out, or?
Time-wise to hang out, you would do you do your training throughout the day, get back to the barracks, and then you would eat supper or dinner or whatever you want to call it, and then clean up the barracks, do your laundry, hang out. Every night at 9 o'clock, the lights went out. Lights are gone. So if you're writing a letter or talking, of course you're ready to go to bed by 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
When you're getting up at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. But then I went, after basic training, I went to South Korea. I can't remember where those pictures are. These two pictures, oh, I even wrote on some of them. Sweet. These two pictures here, I remember pretty well when I first got to Korea. I remember getting off the airplane at the Seoul airport, and I remember it smelled like, I don't know, like a giant mothball factory or something. It was the weirdest smell in the world. But once we got to our hotel room, this was looking out the hotel room. These are the very first pictures I took when I got to Korea, and I was really nervous at that point because I knew nobody, and I was there all by myself. The area around where I was stationed at, then we got on a bus and we traveled clear north. This kind of gives you an idea of the terrain around the base where I was stationed at.
Towards mountains, or?
Very mountainous, and I'll show you a picture here in a second. But like this picture was when I first got to Korea after the hotel. This is the first place I stayed at. It was on the 4th of July weekend. I remember it was 4th of July weekend, and I was all by myself and
Oh, that's sad.
thought the world was ending and sad and so on and so forth. Barracks wise, to kind of give you an idea what the barracks look like little huts, little ranch style houses, and then I had a creek that was right next to our base. But behind our base there was a place, let's see, November of '98. I have a video of it, but this is halfway up Mount Suisan, so this was directly on the north side of our camp, and it was a national park for South Korea, so you could go up there and hike and do a bunch of stuff like that. But from up there, like, you could see our whole entire base, everything that was going on. Like, good thing we didn't have any enemies on the loose there, or they would have seen everything we were doing. As far as bases in South Korea, this is a picture of a South Korean army base right here. We were just driving down the road in the Humvees. I came across a base, and I thought it would be just something to show for comparison of what our base kind of looked like from the outside inside. One of the first things they did when we were in Korea was orientate you to knowing the capabilities of North Korea. So we went up to the DMZ, up to the actual North and South Korean border. This picture here, when you go up there, they had us take all of our rank off and stuff like that. But in this picture, there's a road right here, and it leads to a bridge, and there was a big massacre between the North and the South. There was some historical location, and they were telling us kind of the story about it right there.
So a lot of people died on the border?
Yeah, down by that bridge, because it's like right on the border or something like that.
So
I don't remember the exact story. I just remember then that was, it's called the Freedom Bridge. Good thing I wrote on the back of these. There was an axe murder. That's what it says, an axe murder. This was just below the border where we or not we, where the South Korean Army had their stuff, and just kind of like where their people in charge were at. And I'll show you a picture of. So this picture is kind of interesting. This is actually South Korea, that far building that's kind of big with a bunch of windows. North Korea. North Korea. And then in this picture, I don't know if I can get it in close enough. But if you look in the bottom left corner, there's like a soldier standing at the corner of the building there. Those guards stood there for like 6 hours a day, and they would put half their body behind the building. So like if it was a corner, they'd stand with the corner of the building like this. So they're a smaller target to shoot at if North Korea decided to shoot an attack. So
they had like half of the face on.
Yes.
Okay.
And they told us that they picked because, I guess South Koreans aren't super tall people, but they said they would find the tallest people they could find. So like in South Korea, you're mandatorily obligated to serve 2 years in the military no matter what. So everybody serves, so they'd always pick the biggest, broadest shouldered, tallest guy, so it'd be intimidating to the North Koreans. Interesting, right?
Yeah.
So, speaking of North Korea, this building right here is where they would have meetings and conferences. And the cables, or the microphone cables going down the middle of the table, actually signifies the border between North and South Korea. So, they let us go in this building during the tour where you could go around to the north. So, I actually got to go into North Korea for a few minutes. It didn't happen while I was there, but everybody's required to go on this visit to see the border. But like some of my buddies, the North Koreans would be looking in the windows at you while you're in their building, and you were actually in North Korea. So it was kind of creepy looking.
You're kind of an alien when you go there.
Pardon?
Are you kind of an alien when you go there?
Yeah.
For them?
Yeah, absolutely. This picture here I took. I put 2 green circles on it because I'd sent these pictures back home to my family. But the 2 green circles, it's kind of like a golf course. Like the out of bounds markers, the little white stakes along the out of bounds property line. Those 2 white stakes are literally where the border actually runs between North and South Korea. It looks just like an out of bounds to a golf course. The building in the background is actually a guard tower for North Korea. It was interesting because they would come out with their binoculars and try to look and see who you were, if you had any rank. We had to go there with no rank on or anything like that, so it was always interesting. Give you the heebie-jeebies. I brought this picture here. I was stationed down in Seoul for 30 days. We did an honor guard rotation down there. This is actually the ROK Army, or the Republic of Korea, South Korean Army, pretty much. They were doing some marching. It was their honor guard people, and that's like asphalt. But they had I'd never seen anything like. They were pretty hard on those guys. Like if they were messing up, they beat them. But one of the craziest things I remember sitting up there watching them do is in the military, like when you mess up, you get smoked, or you're doing physical fitness for kind of a punishment or corrective action. I remember seeing them, like if you were to interlock your fingers, they were doing push-ups like this on the asphalt. And I just thought it was the craziest thing in the world, and thinking, I feel bad for those guys.
Yeah.
I didn't want to be a part of those guys.
And that's North Korea, right? You said?
That is South Korea. That was actually in
okay.
Seoul. Few pictures of kind of the general landscape. This picture here, we were actually flying in a Black Hawk helicopter, moving into a training site. We came across the bluish, greenish water that I seen the whole entire time we were over there. This isn't near the ocean or anything like that, so it's kind of, I just had to get a picture of it for whatever reason. I just couldn't resist doing that. We did a lot of stuff with helicopters over there. And then this next picture, we're doing sling load operations. In this picture, there's only, no, they do have 2. We do have 2. So you would take 2 Humvees and you would essentially put them side by side, and the helicopters would come in and hover over the top of them. And then rather than us driving to our training site, they would load us up in the helicopter, and then the helicopter would go over and hover over the Humvees, lift them up and haul them out to our training site. They'd land, they'd disconnect the ropes, move over to the side, land, and we'd crawl out, and then we'd go about our training to kind of simulate a situation. More landscape pictures. Rice paddies were absolutely phenomenal to me. That's a good picture of the rice paddy. We were kind of at a stopping point, so we were kind of hanging out. I don't know. I watched Rambo as a kid and seen him run across the rice paddies and that, and then I seen this and I thought, I guess the movie's
cool.
pretty real.
Yeah.
But I just thought it was a pretty neat deal. Let me think here. Then a couple pictures. Those are actually Fort Benning by the unit identifier. Another train and landscape picture from when I was in Korea. You can see the helicopter flying in the background. And this would be a motor pool. We were getting done with our day of training and had to reset and kind of get everything cleaned up and ready to go do training the next day. We'd be in the motor pool with tanks, Humvees, and a whole bunch of other stuff. And then, let's see. This other picture, while it is, and I have no idea why I decided to put it in a frame, but this is the group of guys I was stationed in Korea with. The gentleman right here, Sergeant Aldridge, he was kind of that mentor guy that taught me to never burn a bridge and always with respect and stuff like that. But this guy right here, Lieutenant, I don't remember his name. He was actually in the movie as a filler. That's why I think this picture's so kind of interesting. I don't remember his name, but in the movie We Were Soldiers that Mel Gibson filmed down in Fort Benning, Georgia. And you can see his face about 3 times in the movie.
That's cool.
So
He's famous.
Yeah, well, silently famous, I
Yeah.
guess, but yeah. So that's kind of the gist of my pictures. Soldiers being soldiers. Here's a couple more pictures. Same motor pools where all the vehicles were. There's a big water source. There was tons and tons of Bradley tanks there. They're fairly new at that time, so the Army was full of them. Obviously, we were being little kids and posing for cute little pictures, but I don't need to show that one. So that's kind of my pictures.
Okay. Thank you again.